Let's bring in my political panel. Joining me now is Basil Smelke. He is a Democratic strategist and former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. And Rina Shah is a former Republican strategist and founder of Relax Strategies. Welcome to you all. I want to start with these text messages that I was just speaking with the Congresswoman-elect about and that were obtained by Talking Points memo. Again, I have to note that NBC News has not reviewed the text messages, but there's one message from Republican Congressman Brian Babin of Texas, and it was sent on November 6th. And we're putting it up on the screen for folks. He wrote to Meadows and said, "Mark, when we lose Trump, we lose our republic. Fight like hell and find a way. We're with you down here in Texas and refuse to live under a corporate Marxist dictatorship. Liberty, Babin." So Congressman Babin did not respond to Talking Points memo's request for comment. You heard our conversation with the Congresswoman. What are we going to do with this? 'Cause it just seems like every single day, Basil, more and more comes out about people who were very willing to upend our democracy.
Well, first of all, those text messages are incredibly disturbing, very scary. What scares me more is that there are probably 100 more text messages that we'll never see from members of Congress or from other officials within government or close to government that we will never see. And that I think is the constant reminder of how close we came to whether it's martial law, which was referenced in one of the text messages, or a complete overturn of our government. It's one of those issues that I'm not sure in the short term how to fix, because the reality is a lot of these folks are in government or they are public facing individuals who we interact with, teachers, lawyers, doctors, law enforcement, whatever the case is. These are people that we interact with every day. I think over time, the folks that are getting caught, like these members of Congress that were texting Mark Meadows, they either need to get sanctioned or arrested or kicked out of government, forbidden from entering government ever again, because they are talking about seditious acts. So I think the biggest point is accountability. Are they being held accountable? And is it a harsh punishment or is it a slap on the wrist? But as we do with Trump and as we're seeing through the January 6th committee, accountability is the best weapon we have thus far.
Accountability is truly, at this point, the only tool in the toolbox when it comes to meeting some justice on this front. As I was speaking with the Congresswoman-elect, obviously we dovetailed to talk about what is currently happening in Texas under the umbrella of threats to democracy. NBC News is reporting that Texas Republicans are considering a Florida-style election police force. Rina, I'm just wondering, is this a key part of the Republican Party apparatus playbook now? And if so, how can folks prevent this from becoming the new normal? Because we are talking about targeting citizens who have served their time and really scaring them, which is a form, in my opinion, of voter suppression.
Symone, Congressman Babin's text, 3 words stick out to me from that text, and it's find a way. That is the GOP strategy and has been for many years now, is find a way and at any cost. You look state to state, you see them doing these kinds of things because what else to do? They have no solutions. They have no pathway to really alleviating some of the greatest concerns and challenges that many of us average Americans face. Instead of talking about strengthening the middle class, I mean, yeah, they talk about it, but the doing to do that, they don't do it. So they have to engage in these kind of low-life tactics to just find their way to grow their party. There's no real need for them to grow the party when what they've done is win elections on hate. You hear of 3 congresspeople coming in who were outside on January 6th. These are people that understand that fear, hate, and division gets them elected on the GOP side. Now, I see 3 themes here that we've got to talk about for the upcoming year, and they are obsession with power, Americans' short attention spans, and the zero accountability, it seems, the no consequences era we live in. The GOP is frustrated. When you talk to leaders today who don't want Trump back in the White House, who don't want MAGA to win the day of the party, they understand these 3 challenges. but who's stepping up to the front lines on the GOP side to fight
that's what I was going to say, though. Like people say they understand the challenges. They say they don't want Trump, but it is not that hard to speak up and tell the truth. It is really not that hard to stand for something, right, Basil? I'll give you a word on this, and I want to talk about the economy.
Sure. No, I think that's the challenge, right? For people who actually have something to lose, to get up and risk it, to make these very important points. Look, one of the things that was really heartbreaking to me 20 some odd years ago when I was on the ground in Texas working on a campaign was a number of black men that I asked to get involved and said, you know what, we can't vote because we've got felonies, we got stuff on our record. And I know that the Democratic Party has historically tried to make sure that these folks regain their rights. So you have one party who is doing everything they can to bring more people into the fold, to give people more access to the ballot box, and another party that is doing everything that they can to litigate, legislate, to restrict that. So the question is, like, where are your options if you want to grow your party? There's only one option and one policy option available to you.
Let's move to the economy, because y'all about to radicalize me in this seat. And I want to talk about the latest inflation report. And this came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it actually found that prices in November, they rose less than expected to 7.1% compared to this time in 2021. Okay, so I want y'all to look at this and see what's driving this. Gas prices have steadily declined from their peak this summer, okay? A gallon of gas now costs around $3.24, according to AAA. So that's good on gas. But when it comes to housing, okay, overall costs are actually up 7.1% from a year ago. That's actually the largest increase since 1982. Rent costs have risen 7.2%. That's the largest increase on record. And when we get to talking about homeowner costs are up 7.1%. Yet another record. So, Rina, what say you on this?
You know, I'll tell you, the Republicans that I talk to everywhere from New York to Florida to Texas all say one thing. And they said, if we can't feel it in our pocketbook, then what are the Democrats doing? There is a general sense out there that Democrats have mismanaged our money from the time that Biden took over the White House, that he didn't quite have the strategy that could pull us out of the pandemic on the economic side. Now, that's all fine and well on the health side. We're thriving. We're back out. Everything's open this holiday season. But if you're feeling like your grocery bill isn't less, then it's a sense of, then Democrats didn't really work on this. Now, I was alarmed to learn recently, Symone, that 60% of the American diet is prepared foods. That cost has not come down on the shelf. And that's a real big problem, because that means, again, when you get out to the checkout counter, you're not seeing a lower grocery bill. And that is the problem. So people are still feeling that pressure, and they're not understanding that Democrats have a plan in place, but it's a long-term plan. And again, that's where I fear that Republicans can punish the Democrats on that if they're not hearing the message that says, hey, wait a few more months to get that grocery bill lowered.
Yeah, the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually said, Basil, that the gas prices coming down is what is offsetting the higher costs in housing and the fact that things are still very expensive at the grocery store. So do you think the report is very fancy, right? You got all these numbers, 7.2, 3.5. But do you think that people are now feeling this? Because we haven't talked a lot. I haven't heard a lot about gas prices since they've been going down. We heard a lot when they were up.
No, I do think some voters are actually feeling the change. But to Rina's point, like, how much are they feeling that change? And just two very quick things on that. Number one, I do think some of the changes in the real estate market are one way that there is a lingering effect of inflation. You know, rents are really high. You got the mayors of many cities talking about building more affordable housing. And of course, if you're a young person trying to buy your first home, that's going to be somewhat prohibitive right now in this market. The other thing that I would say is, even if we're not talking about it, the question is it already baked into the voter? Meaning, if a voter is already changing their behavior to accommodate these higher prices, then that is something that even if they don't articulate, they notice it quite significantly and will be baked into a lot of political decisions they make going forward. So if they're not talking about it, we should assume that voters have already changed their behavior to deal with the fact that they're having problems paying for a lot of important items for their household. And that's something that, you know, Democrats started to talk about, but we'll need to continue to do more so going into 2024.
That is such an important point. We're going to end it there. People are going to chew on that nugget of gem of information that you just dropped. Basil Smelke, Rina Shah, thank you both very, very much.